Very good. So, we want to learn Mizmor Daled. And the easiest pasuk is the one that can't be translated. At least I can't translate it as the first one. Why is it so easy? Because whatever, it means something about musical stuff. I have them first and different ideas what Namatzech is and what Benegidas is. We can skip that one. But what we see about this Mizmor is that the Mizmor Pasha doesn't come together. You read this Mizmor, one pasuk after the other, and then you look at the whole picture. The sense you get is that there's a lot of disconnected things that simply don't add up into one coherent whole. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to tell you what I want to do. I want to show you that. I want to show you the basic flow or lack of flow of the things that happen in this Mizmor. And then what I want to do is that I want to show you, as we did last time, I want to show you that there's internal wordplay in the Mizmor. It's always good clues to look for the words that repeat themselves. And then we're going to see that this Mizmor actually does a lot of continuation of the previous Mizmor. And then we're going to put it into the context that we discussed in the previous Mizmor, and that might supply a solution for the problem which I'm about to lay out before you, the first problem of the Hemshech Mizmor. So let's see the basic structure of the Mizmor. It begins with a very basic idea, nice, that Hashem should respond to David when he calls. Fine. So far, so good. Very common theme in Tehillim. Next pasuk also. People who are his opponents and doubt his status. So, and then they should know, pasuk Daled, they should know that he's unique, and then Hashem will indeed listen to him. So far, so good. Okay. And then, the beginning of pasuk Hey, they should be afraid and shouldn't sin. Okay, so far, so good. But now we have this strange thing about they should say something in their hearts on the bed. Where does that come into anything? The bed, saying something in their hearts. Okay. Doimu, they should be silent. Okay, that makes sense. They should be silent because they're saying things. They're saying things against him, and they should keep quiet. Okay. And then pasuk Vav, all of a sudden these enemies of his are being encouraged to people who love Kazav and Rick. They're being encouraged to bring sacrifices of righteousness. Where does that come in? Where does that come in? When I tell them to bring sacrifices, tzedek. And then pasuk is a completely new thing about many people who say, "Who's going to show us toiv?" And Hashem should, let's say we just saw, like many people do, as if it's with a sin. So like Yisa Hashem Panav, okay, so who's going to show us toiv? And Hashem has to give us the light of his face. And then something about me, let's say David, being happy, or Hashem making David happy when they have Dagan and Tirush, completely just not clear what's going on over here. There's many people, who are these many people, where they come in, who are looking for the toiv, and David says, when they have Dagan and Tirush, I become happy. And then he says, together in peace. So together in peace, I am going to go to sleep. Okay, so who together with whom? He's going to sleep. But again, we have the sleep thing, this mishkav, like we had earlier. And the Chayr is together with them, because now he made peace with them, it seems, with his antagonists from the first half of the Mizmor. After going through the Zivchei Tzedek and telling them something about their mishkav, and then bringing up this whole thing about people looking for toiv, and how he gets happy when they have Dagan and Tirosh. And he says, it's going to be peace, we're going to sleep, I'm going to go to sleep in peace with them, but he's going to sleep, so it's Eshkiva, but Bishop Yachtav, and then Hashem's Levadod, was Levetach Teshiveni. So again, the pasuk talks about him being together with them, but then ending with Hashem alone. Okay, so basically, I hope I gave you a sense of how this is very strange Mizmor. I'm trying to make sense out of the movement of the idea over here. So, like I said, the first four psukim are very straightforward, but then things seem to break down, and random things come in. Again, the idea of the bed and saying something in their minds, and then also being to Zivchei Tzedek, and this whole business of who's going to show us the toiv, and he's happy when they have Dagan and much Dagan and Tirush. So what's that about? Okay, so then I want to just read it inside and show you some points in the textual and the lashon. Pasuk Aleph calls, it says, Bekari Aneni, and Hashem will be Shemea. So that's picked up again in the end of Pasuk Dalet, and we're doing it with internally in the Mizmor. Then we'll get to the previous ones, and that's picked up again in Pasuk Dalet that Hashem is Yishma b'Korei Elav, and further in Pasuk Beis he calls Hashem Alekei Tzidki, and then he enjoins these Bnei Ish to be Zevech Zivchei Tzedek. And as we mentioned earlier, he talks about their Mishkav, and then he gets to his Mishkav in Pasuk Tes, Eshkevav Yishon. He tells them Imu Bilvavchem, in your hearts, and then he talks about his own heart in Pasuk Ches, Satasimcha B'libi. He tells them to be Bitchu El Hashem in the end of Pasuk Vav, and then in the end of Pasuk Tes he talks about him being Levetach. And in Pasuk Zayin there's the Rabbim who say something, and at the end of Pasuk Ches you have Ravu, they're Dagan and Tirish. Of these Rabbim is Ravu. So these are the parallels I picked up. So maybe there's more that I didn't notice. Sometimes they're just right there in front of you, guys don't notice them. But these are just some clues to guide us. Typically, these kinds of words are the guides to how to be the mitzvah. So I want to point them out. Okay, now we're going to do a third thing. So I want to show you how this mizmor follows from the earlier ones. Thematically. So let's say Pasuk Beis, B'Kari Aneni. And he insists in Pasuk Dalet that Hashem will hear when he calls. That's like we had in Mizmor Gimel, right? Koyle El Hashem Ekra, Vaya'aneni Mihar Kodesh Yisrael, which is, in turn, that fact that he says in Mizmor Gimel that he can call to Hashem who will plant him from Har Kodesh, that is a continuation of Mizmor Beis, which says that he's the king Al Tzion Har Kodesh. So Mizmor Gimel, as we discussed, where he's Beireach, so he's not Al Tzion Har Kodesh, but he's going to call to Hashem from afar, and Hashem is going to answer Mehar Kodesh, where Hashem is and where David isn't, because he's running away. But there's the idea that he can't call to Hashem due to his connection with Har Kodesh, which is established in Mizmor Beis, that he's Anina Sachti Malki Al Tzin Har Kodesh. And here too he says, Hashem does answer me. And here also he says, why does Hashem answer him? Because he's unique. He's unique, as it says in Pasuk Dalet. Du'uki hifla Hashem chassid, like we had in Mizmor Beis. Hashem says, "Ani nesachti malki al tziyun HaKodesh." He has a unique connection to Hashem. Hifla Hashem chassid lo is like Ani nesachti malki al tziyun HaKodesh. It's the bechira in David. There's a choice in David. He's Hashem's person, and since he's Hashem's person, therefore, Koyle Hashem mekaber Ani HaKodesh Sela, Ani nesachti malki al tziyun HaKodesh, and here B'Kari Aneni and Hashem Yishma B'Kari Elav. But they are the Bnei Ish. The Bnei Ish who oppose him, right? So think about this term Bnei Ish. We learned in Mizmor Beis that he is the Ben of Hashem. Hashem, B'ni'ata, that's what makes him unique. That's his unique status, that he has the entitled to ask Hashem for whatever he wants. Shalmi Meni, since he's the son of Hashem, he can ask whatever he wants. So, but the Bnei Ish, these are the mortals, the sons of man, who are opposing this person who's actually a chassid loi, and therefore is not merely a Ben Ish. In fact, he's called B'ni'ata of Hashem. Okay? And what do they love in Pasuk Gimel? They love Rik, that we had in the beginning of Mizmor Beis, Umim Yehagu Rik. So the themes of the opposition to David, and as we discussed, there's two types of opposition. There's opposition of the other kings, and then there's the opposition of his own son, in Mizmor Gimel, which makes this more complicated. Okay? But they love Rik, like the Umim Yehagu Rik, and he's the Mufla. He's chosen to be a chassid, like we learned in Mizmor Beis, Ani Nesachti Malki Al Tzin HaKodesh. And then this thing, the focus of the Mishkav, that also continues from Mizmor Gimel, where he talks about Ani Shachavti V'Yishana. There's this theme of going to sleep securely, or not securely, whatever that's going on there. We spoke about it last week. You missed last week's, right? Okay, but that's okay. We'll try to bring you up to date or whatever. Not okay. Okay, no, you should listen. It's really good. Okay, so, all right. So you see that there's a Mishkav here in Mizmor Dalet twice, Mishkavchem, and he's going to sleep, and that we have in Mizmor Gimel, Ani Shachavti V'Yishana. And Doimu in Mizmor Dalet, the keeping silent. Okay, keeping silent. We had in Mizmor, in the previous Mizmor, a lot of people saying things. Okay, Rabim Oimrim L'Nafshi, just like we have in this Mizmor, Rabim Oimrim Mi'areinu Tov. That's exact words about the people who say things, and here they're told to be quiet. Okay, so yes, those are what I saw in terms of how this mizmor follows the previous mizmor. Okay, so far we have just some sense of context. We have some textual things we noticed in the text over here and the words that repeat. We have context that this is a continuation of certain themes in the previous mizmor, and we have in general this confusion about what the mizmor is trying to do overall. So I want to suggest something over here, which perhaps is not complete as an idea, but I think maybe it will get us somewhere. I think it does. In terms of what is the background of this mizmor, so once we connect this mizmor to the previous mizmor, so we have two very important things to draw upon to establish a possible conceptual background for this mizmor that I think will help us plug it in and make it all make sense. And those two things are Kriya Shema, and the story of Absalom. The story of Absalom is very obvious because the last mizmor is about Absalom. And this one is continuation of that one. The Rabbim Maimim in Shos Nafshi, Rabbim Maimim in Utayv. Okay, fine. So we could. So what I'm saying is we're entitled to say, hey, what if we look at the story of Absalom, and that somehow gives us some clues to what's going on in this mizmor. Why is he picking this and why is he picking that? That would make sense, right? And as we discussed, we'll get to it. But for example, just to give you a little sense of where we're going, we had in the story of Absalom, the whole story of Absalom hinged on whether David is going to sleep that night or not. Because he went to stay overnight, and they said, well, either we will go attack him, and Husha said, no, don't. And then he sent the message, don't sleep overnight. And that's what we spoke about in the last mizmor. He was going to go to sleep, but then he didn't. So the theme of Shchiva, it maybe doesn't make sense just if you read this mizmor, boom, like straight up in mizmor, what are you talking about Shchiva all of a sudden? But maybe we're supposed to read this in the context of that story. And once we have these ideas of Shchiva and the significance of that and how the story hinged on it, fine. And the other thing is, but I'll go through the pratim and work that all out. And the other thing we have is Kriya Shema, because as we've been showing very clearly, pretty clearly, I think, there's a major Kriya Shema theme going on in Aleph, Beis, and Gimel. Okay? Terasa Yega Yom V'Layla is Magiza Ben V'Layla Chimakayin with Kriya Shema. Asapra Al Choyk B'ni Ata Ani Ayom L'Laticha. He said it's Kriya Shema because he says all the time B'ni Ata Ani Hayom L'Laticha. Why would he see that in Kriya Shema? Because in Kriya Shema it says so Hashem acts to you as he wants you to act to your son. He teaches them to so that means Hayom. So Ani Hayom L'Laticha. And Kriya Shema is specific to the king, and we spoke about this, and that's why we have the concept of kingship when it comes to Kriya Shema, B'nei Melachim, and the Zohar Chadash says that everyone's supposed to say Kriya Shema because they study Malchus Shamayim, and therefore they learn how to be a king. So Kriya Shema is for Yisrael as kings. Everyone's supposed to be a king. It says Mamlechas Kohen and the Goy Kodesh. So the Mechilta says everyone was going to be a king eventually. So the mitzvah of Kriya Shema is like the mitzvah of Gisa Ben V'Layla, as the Gemara says, which Gisa Ben V'Layla was said to Yeshua the king. Okay, but we're repeating the previous shurim just to bring you up a little bit. So the point is that Kriya Shema has a background over here. Kriya Shema is a background theme that we can plug into this and see if that helps us. So that's what I want to do. So let's start. I want to show you something in the story of Absalom. And I want to show you a few things in the story of Absalom and in Kriya Shema, which I think once we use those two and try to conjure up an idea of sorts, I think that could help, okay? So take a look in the story of Absalom, Shmuel Beis, Perek Tesvav, Pasuk Yud Beis. I want to show you a few things from the Absalom story. You know what I'll do? Let me tell you all the things we have to look at the Absalom story, and then we'll just reference them as necessary. We'll start from the beginning of Perek Tesvav. So Shmuel Beis Perek Tesvav, Absalom makes himself chariots and horses and 50 runners, and Absalom would stand by the Shar, and anyone who had a riv, Absalom would come to him and say, and be friendly to him. This is Perek Tesvav Pasuk Gimel. Vayomer elav Absalom re'ed dvarecha tovim unechoichem. Look, what you say is good, and the king is not going to listen to you. Next pasuk, Shmuel Beis Perek Tesvav Pasuk Dalet. Vayomer Absalom yisi meni shofet ba'aretz va'allah yavei chol ish asher yeh le'rivu mishpat v'tzedakah. Only I be the shofet. then I would give everyone tzedek, uniform tzedek, right? That's a big kasha. How do you do that? Right? Everyone's above average. Everyone's tzedek. What about the loser? But anyway, so that's Absalom's idea, and then he would be friendly to everyone and kiss them and made everyone. He stole their hearts, right? This is the pasuk above. After 40 years, he says to the king, I want to go fulfill my neder that I vowed to give to bring karbanis in Hebron. Okay, why is he going to Hebron to bring karbanis and not doing it in Yerushalayim? The Gemara asks the kasha Tamura. Gemara says one pshat. The Gemara ultimately comes out that it's okay, you can go to Hebron because mom's mutter then, but it's significant that he leaves the Yerushalayim. Of course, it's very significant because he's going to go to Hebron, which is where his father used to live, and actually he was born there. So I pointed out he was born there, and Yerushalayim was born in Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is closely associated with Yerushalayim. David HaMelech was first king in Hebron for 7.5 years, and then Yerushalayim for 33 years, and Shlomo is associated with Yerushalayim. Absalom was born in Hebron, but either way, it's a Pasha thing. His capital, his father's in Yerushalayim, and he's going off to Hebron, and he said, "I'm not going to bring my karbanis. I want to do it in Hebron," and that's where he's going to start his revolt. Okay, that's Pasuk Yud. He goes to Hebron, and he brings people along with him. And Pasuk Yud Beis, Vayishach Absalom as Achisofel HaGiloi Yetz David Meir MeGiloi. So he sends Achisofel out of Giloi to do something for him. B'Zavcha Es HaZvachim. When he's doing this Zvachim, Vayia Kesha Ametz Va'om V'Hilach Rav Absalom. Okay. So, and then as we met, so now first I notice over here that Absalom is being Zeveach Zvachim. Which in general, being Zeveach Zvachim, well here you have the double lashon Zeveach Zvachim, but in general making Zvachim and making kings goes together because we have that by Shlomo in the beginning of last week's Haftarah. When they're making the Zevach, that's when we're saying Adoniah is king or Shlomo is going to be king. And we have it also by Shmuel, he goes down to Yishai and he makes the Zevach, right? And I think we have it by Shaul too, right? I think we have it by Shaul also. Yeah, he gives him the good part of the Zevach, he tells him to put aside the good one. And he tells him you're okay. Anyway, so Zebach is what you do when you want to make a king. And Absalom thinks he's instituting a new kind of tzedek over here, and he's going to be the one to make everyone see that what they're saying is taif. Basically, everyone thinks they're taif, and he's like, yeah, everyone's got taif, and I'm the one who's going to bring you what you're looking for. Okay. Additionally, we said in the story of Absalom, as we mentioned, there's a whole question of whether David's going to sleep overnight, and the whole story started because of David's sin that begins that Vayokum David Ma'al Mishkavai Ve'Yisalach Al Hagag, and we spoke about that already. Did you say Kishma? Did not say Kishma? That's what he's supposed to learn. What's going on with that? But anyways, the Mishkav is a big theme. Okay, fine. Now going back to, and of course the Mishkav is a big theme in Kriya Shema too, obviously, and everyone knows the Gemara in Brachos brings this pasuk of about Kriya Shema Shalamita, goes without saying. That's a Kriya Shema theme, and you tell you what else is a Kriya Shema theme. Look at this pasuk, Perek Dalet in Tehillim that we're learning. Pasuk Ches. So someone who gets happy, me'es degonam v'sivaysham rabu. So that's Kriya Shema, right? Nasati b'tar atzchem be'itai. Sapta degonecha sivaysham v'sivaysham. Okay, so David HaMelech is saying what? So that's from David HaMelech.
How many times is it already?
Yeah, Stama, they were doing it from then. What I mean, it's clearly parallel. You have to understand. Shema, V'hayim Shema clearly is a parallel parsha to Shema, right? It has all the same things, and it goes in the Tehillim.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll address something we'll talk about tonight will help you maybe understand why it's only Dabbanan and maybe David didn't do it, but he's still addressing it. Okay, well, let's hold on. Okay.
Well, even this man that was in the first one to do Dabbanan, so it's not up to go.
No, I can't even say that, right. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so here's a Kriya Shema pasuk. Okay, so let's say we plug in Kriya Shema, we plug in Absalom and see what happens, and you see it's very interesting. Right, you have that pasuk, something about when it's the ace of the rain, and Dagan and Tirosh, right? In fact, by the way, I don't know enough about this ace business and what it means exactly, but I saw one of the modern Mefarshim is very bothered with this lashon, like make ace the gun of the Tirosh and Rabu. What do you mean ace? It's a very weird expression, like from the time. It's not it's not a unique time, right? But it's not that the me'itay means in its season. Say that. What's me'ace the gun of the Tirosh and Rabu? It's like if that happens, you're happy. But anyways, according to this, the point is no. There's a reference. It's a reference, right? It's a reference. And in general, I think that's a general rule in learning Tanakh, that sometimes you have these things that are not perfect in context, and that itself is a clue that you have to understand that it's lifted. So let's say it's lifted from that other pasuk, right? It's lifted from Kriya Shema. So yeah, maybe Taka doesn't work so well because you have to actually fill in the words. Me'es, the rain that comes be'itay, and then they have to and everyone knows that pasuk. Everyone's supposed to read it in light of that pasuk. So that, okay? And Stam is a member muzgar for a lot of the people who get stuck on things. It's because they don't have this, they're not reading it properly, they're not plugging into the other parashas as referencing that pasuk. All right, so now here's what I want to say. Here's what I want to read the parasha. I think let's see if this all comes together. I think it could. Okay, David HaMelech says in Mizmor Beis that he's the son of Hashem. He's the son of Hashem. How does he know that? Because he reads Kriya Shema. Did we not give napkins? Oh yeah. There's tissues there if you need on the radio. Okay, so he knows he's the son of Hashem because he reads Kriya Shema. So I want to review that just because it's so important. Even though I said it before, it's good to understand. Where does it say in Kriya Shema a person is the son of Hashem? It says, things Hashem is commanding you should teach to your children, which means that you to Hashem is like a son. And I maintain furthermore, that's why the bracha prior to Kriya Shema, we talk about Hashem as our Father who teaches us Torah. Avinu Avraham should teach us Torah. Why? Because he's about to tell us that he's teaching us Torah, and that we should teach it to our children. Shmami no, then in the context of Kriya Shema, Hashem is our Father. And therefore that's mamash the pasuk. Asaper el choik, Hashem omer elai b'ni ata ani yomi l'datich. Asaper el choik, I say it all the time. Why does I say it all the time? Because he says it morning and evening. And what does he say? When he says the pasuk, that means ani yomi l'datich. And it was after the king that we spoke about last week, that Kriya Shema is a king mitzvah. Okay? Or 2 weeks ago. Kriya Shema is really a mitzvah for kings. And that's why the Gemara Menachah says that if you read Kriya Shema Shachar, you mekayim bo v'gis bo yom v'layla. Now, why does anyone have to mekayim v'gis bo yom v'layla? V'gis bo yom v'layla was said to Yeshua, who was a king. And the king Shanemo has to read Torah yom v'layla. It says v'kar bo kol yimei chayav. The answer is, I submit that the mitzvah of Kriya Shema, which is a kiyum of v'gis bo yom v'layla, tells us that everyone has to do a mitzvah melech. Just like, I think I mentioned, it's just like there's certain mitzvahs kahuna that all of Yisrael has to do. Nevela, Treifa, Sarotes. And by those mitzvahs, the Torah is makdim, says, Ki am kodesh ata l'Hashem Elokecha. And Bonim atam Hashem Elokecha. Meaning these mitzvahs that are said to Kahanim, and also by Yisrael, Torah explains that they're given to Yisrael because they also have an element of kahuna, as it says, Atam tim of leches kohanim. And now we learn that also the mitzvah of a king is extended to everyone also, and that's anyway Kriya Shema. Okay, and they study Hashem's kingship, Malchus Shamayim, because they have to learn how to be kings. Okay, but I repeat myself. Now, so therefore, the point is that David HaMelech is a king. I mean, he's the son of Hashem. Sorry, son of Hashem. Because he's the king, he reads Kriya Shema, and that teaches him that he's the son of Hashem. And Bnei Ish don't recognize that, right? So they don't recognize that David HaMelech is the son of Hashem. So what does he be miyayitz? Then in the next passage, he tells them to do something on their beds, to move back from mishkavchem. Yes, because he's telling them read Kriya Shema, which is and you'll see that Hifal Hashem Chasidlai. You'll see that I'm not just a Ben Ish, I am the Ben of Hashem. Okay, so I'm solving my problem of where does the bed come in? Okay, very simple. Because if you plug this into Kriya Shema, and the debate is revolving around Kriya Shema. Kriya Shema teaches that he's not just a Ben Ish, that he's a Chasidlai, that he's B'niyata. And if these people don't understand it, so his advice to them is read Kriya Shema and then don't be quiet, and they'll stop insisting that I'm not Ben of Hashem. Okay? Now, let's see.
What does the Rigzu mean exactly?
Rigzu, be afraid. Ragzu, chalu imeko. Be frightened. Okay, now, where do the Zivchei Tzedek? Another problem is, what does he all of a sudden recommend that they should be Zivchei Tzedek? So we mentioned that Absalom, who was going to be matzdik everyone, that doesn't work. See, what was Avshalom's argument? I can be matzdik everyone. Apparently David was not being matzdik everyone. Okay, so that means David's version of tzedek was different than Avshalom's version of tzedek. Okay, whatever the difference may have been. So we can suggest that David's version of tzedek is as he begins his mizmor lekei tzidki, meaning his version of tzedek comes from God. So maybe not everyone is mutzdik then, because there's a standard. It's a different kind of tzedek. It's a standard imposed from above, right? Malki, he's serving for Hashem. He can't just adjust the tzedek to make everyone happy, because it's a lekei tzidki. Now he adjures that, he tells them to be zevech zivchei tzedek. Absalom brought zevachim v'zevech zevachim. His zevachim are not tzedek, not zivchei tzedek, and his tzedek is not truly tzedek. And where did he do his zevachim? In Chevron, not in Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is called the city of tzedek, and the pasuk says in V'leis HaBracha, right, Malki tzedek melech shalom. So the zivchei tzedek are the zevachim, Yerushalayim kinds of zevachim, which is har kodshi, right, which is David's chus in Mizmor Beis, which is calling upon again over here when he says Mizmor Beis and Gimel, right? Hashem is going to answer me mehar kadshay, and here again he's talking about Hashem answering him. Why? Because his zevachim are done in Yerushalayim, that is zivchei tzedek, not like Avshalom's zevachim that were done in Hebron, which is not truly tzedek. Pasuk says in V'leis HaBracha, Amim har yikra'u sham yizbechu zivchei tzedek. So the har, that's the har kachi. The har is the place for the zivchei tzedek. So when he's calling them to be zivchei tzedek, he's establishing why he is better, let's say, than Avshalom. Okay, now let's go back to. Now here's Rabbim Oimim Miyareinu Tov. So you have these Rabbim. The Rabbim, as we learned in the last Mizmor, are Avshalom's supporters. Rabbim Oimim, the national last Mizmor, are the Avshalom supporters that were Rabbim, and that was the whole threat to David, was that they're going to use their multitudes, use the great numbers to overwhelm David. Okay, so these Rabbim are saying Miyareinu Tov. Remember we saw Avshalom tells them what does he say again? Something by Raya, no? One second, Perek Tes Vav, Pasuk Dalet, Re'ei Dvarach Atayv Menuchayim, Gimel. Re'ei Dvarach Atayv Menuchayim. Yeah, what?
I'm saying that so our
Yeah, especially if it's Yisa Hashem, right? I mean, if it's like a Nisa with a Sama, a sin, which is how the Ben Ezra says, I think Rashi has a different shot, like an ace. Yeah, so in Perek Tes Vav, Pasuk Gimel, and Shmuel, he says, Re'ei Dvarach Atayv Menuchayim. So now, this is the traction of Avshalom. The traction of Avshalom is that he's the one who brings the Taiv, makes everyone see their Taiv. And they're like, maybe David can't do it for us. Right? And Avshalom said, Mi Simeni Shaifit. So there's a Miyareinu Taiv, there's a reference to this competition. Can David do it? And so what does David say? So I want to tell you what David says. David says that you should know, when you guys have a lot of Dagan and Tirosh, I'm happy. This is his answer. He's like, you think I don't care about you, right? Basically, you think I don't care about you. Apparently, that David's out of touch, doesn't care about the common man, doesn't care that everyone should be happy, and he's okay with people suffering. And Avshalom is the one who's going to be married everyone. Taiv. David's response is over here. He says his response is, they should know when you guys are rich, I'm happy. Okay, what exactly is this response? But I'll get to that in a minute. And then I'm saying is V'haim Shemai, right? When V'haim Shemai is this guy by you, and V'sati B'tatzchem B'ita Yer Makshav L'necha, you should know it makes me happy. Okay, interesting. Why is that a response? And then, but I'll get to that soon. And then the next pasuk brings in together. He's saying, look, you guys are doing shchiva. I want you to do shchiva. I want you to read Krishma Parsha Aleph, where it says, and you'll learn that I'm the chassid of Hashem because I have that. It's really my mitzvah, be'ikr. I'm the melech. I'm the one who's the son of Hashem. And then he references the second parsha of Krishma and says, you should know I'm happy when the second parsha is the Skayim. And B'shalom Yachdav Eshka Avisham, we're both going to go to sleep. I'm also going to go to sleep. You're going to go to sleep, and it's going to be Shalom. And Hashem is Levadad, who's alone. Okay, so we have this interesting thing about Hashem alone. We'll get to that in a minute. That I think takes us back to Hashem Echad, of the first parasha. Levetach Teshiveni, he puts me Levetach, and I invited you to enjoy me the Bitcha, Beis Tes Ches Hey, in Pasuk Vav, where he told him to be Zavech Tzedek B'Tech Hashem, right? Yeah, that's just the structure. So now I want to tell you what I think it means. What's his response? Like, I'm happy when you guys are rich. Okay, shkayach. So, but the Elaisa, How does that answer the problem that Absalom is the one who's going to be Maras Tov and you're not? So here's what I want to suggest, okay? And for this you have to understand the difference between Shema and Shemaya. And I'll give this a bit of a kitzur. It's in my sefer on Mishas Yaakov, a piece called Tam Matzah. Very, very important idea. In Shema, there's obviously Shema and Shema parallel each other, and you could line them up, right? But the first way you could line them up is, let's say that it says Shema, and then it says Im Shemaya. So, okay, it sort of lines up, sort of doesn't, because Shema assumes that you listen, and that's it. Im Shemaya says, well, maybe you will, maybe you won't. And then, from that difference, lots of things change. For example, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. V'hoyim Shemaya, maybe yeah, maybe no. Pen Yifta Levavchem. There's no guarantee. In the Parsha of Shema, there's no tzad of Avodah. In Shema, in the Parsha of Shema, it says Lov Hashem b'chol levav b'chol nafsho b'chol noidecha. In V'hoyim Shemaya, it says b'chol levav b'chol nafshechem. It doesn't say to love Hashem with all your mo'ay, which is all your money. In fact, on the contrary, it uses the carrot and stick of you'll either not have wealth or you'll have wealth, depending on you serve Hashem, as an encouragement to serve Hashem. Right? So the first parsha says Hashem Echad, and you should give everything to Hashem unconditional love, because Hashem Echad. There's nothing else to talk about. So love Hashem, give up your life, give up your soul, give up your money. The second parsha says give up your leiv and nefesh, and in return for that I'll give you money.
How come avoid isn't mentioned the second one on the first?
Oh, because I think because avodah has to do with is something that's somewhat in the absence of ava. In a pure recognition of Hashem Echad, it's you don't have the avodah kind of paradigm. I think that's why. Okay, so that's the difference between the two parashas. So now, and what that means is, now which one is it, right? Well, what's the right way to serve Hashem? Meaning to say, does a person serve Hashem and give up his money, or will a person serve Hashem and be rewarded with moed? The answer is depends. A person who's open to the message of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, he recognizes Yichud Hashem, and therefore loves Hashem b'chol lev b'chol lev b'chol b'chol moed. He doesn't need to be rewarded. He doesn't need to be punished. V'im Shemaya is for the person who his approach is Im Shemaya, because he has to be encouraged. Then this is the encouragement, okay? So just regarding, he's saying Krishma Darbanan, the second parasha, this for sure, this alternative. The question is, should everyone be reading this alternative, or maybe not? Maybe you should only read it when you need to, okay? Maybe the Rabbanan said everyone needs to. So, and then I'll tell you what's going on in this parasha, in our parak, I think. David HaMelech is from Parak Aleph. He's a Parak Aleph. He's Krishma, Parsha Rishayna of Shema. Hashem Echad, which means he doesn't care if there's money or not. I realized I forgot to look this up. The famous Gemara, the Warm Brachas, they would come to David HaMelech after his whole night of learning, says the Gemara, and they would say, Am Chisot Tzich Parnasa. And he would tell them, okay, whatever, do this. And like, no, that's not going to work. So, okay, do that. I don't know if there's two things he said that don't work. Right, first, the Chudus Parnasa Zamizeh. I think it's two steps. I forgot to look it up. It's important if he was 2 steps and then he tells him to go to war, because I got a little bit of sense in that Gemara that David HaMelech was didn't really care so much about those Parnasa woes. It's like, okay, the Chus Parnasa is there, like not gonna work. Okay, try something else. And like he was learning Torah whole night, and then they come to him in the morning and like, hey, well, what about Parnasa? He says, borrow from each other, whatever. Basically, like, why don't you borrow from each other? Not sure, good idea. No, so I'm saying, my question is, perhaps the Gemara was trying to give that sense. That David's Dveikus in Torah was like the first Parsha of Shema, which says, Love Hashem b'chol lev b'chol nefesh b'chol moed. Zay gesund. Everything's fine. Like, why is everything fine? Because Hashem Echad. So it doesn't mean it makes sense to say that there's a problem, because everything is love. Everything's coming from Yichud Hashem. What's the shayla? What do you need money for? But now we have a guy like Absalom who says, look, I'm going to show you I'm going to show you the goods. I'm going to show you Dog and Tir Sheyitza. My daddy doesn't care about this stuff because he's just a tzaddik. So the Olam is Noitach Absalom because they like that. They like this model where Dog and Tir Sheyitza actually are part of the equation and what people care about. David HaMelech is not into that. So he tells him like this. He tells him, and here's his answer. He says, I also care about the second parsha of Krishma. Why? I don't need Dog and Tir Sheyitza. But when you guys have it, my leiv is sameach. So even though my lave, Klape Hashem, is a Hafta Yisrael L'Kei B'chol Avav, first parasha, my lave doesn't need Dogan and Tirish and Yitzhak. But you're my people, you're my common folk, who you guys need Hayim Shemoya. And I care, I'm happy when the Hamayim, who's a Hayim Shemoya kind of people, are successful. Okay, that's what I want to read. That's what I want to read. So he's saying like this: so b'shalom yachtav v'eshka v'ishan, we can go to sleep together. Ki ata Hashem levadad, you Hashem who's badad, who's Hashem echad, levetach toishiveini. Me David, I'm levetach. Why am I levetach? I'm levetach because I read v'ahavta Hashem lekech v'lavavcha, and because the Hamayin reads v'ayim shemaya. That's the Kamash Malon over here. That the two parshas of Krishma work in parallel. I heard that for two different people. So David HaMelech would say that, yeah, but the king understands that those kinds of people, the lesser kinds of people, are part of his nation. So even though I'm not like Absalom, who's going to offer you tzedek that's not tzedek of Hashem, Elekei tzidki, I'm not going to offer you that because I want tzedek tzedek. But that doesn't mean so what does that mean? It means I don't care about this world the same way Absalom does. But that doesn't mean that I have no interest in you guys being happy about this world. I also want you to be happy about this world. So even though I am with Hashem in the first parasha, but I get simcha from you having the Tirish V'yitzah. So remember the diak, Rabim Oimrim, and then Ravu. Okay? There's the Rabim and there's the Ravu. And then there's the last pasuk is Hashem's Levadad. Because what's happening is the first parasha of Shema is about Hashem Echad. Second parasha of Shema is maybe not. Maybe there's a Lemachir, maybe not. So that's where the Rabim. Remember we had the whole Rabbin thing in the last Mizmar, a bunch of times. Rabbin Tzari, Rabbin Kamalai, Rabbin Nafshi. So the Rabbim is the ones who are opposed to David, because David, Malchus Shemayim, Kabbalsa Malchus Shemayim is Hashem Echad. So the king who's supposed to learn from Malchus Shemayim to be a good king, is supposed to learn Badad. That's the midah of a king. Okay, the midah of a king is that he's united, and I noticed also the Lavim, what's the Lavim of a king? Lo Yarba Lo Susim, Lo Yarba Lo Noshim, and Kesef Lo Yarba Lo Moed. King has to be Echad, because a king is one. Rambam says in the Sefer Mitzvahs, what's a king's primary role? To unite the people. The king has to be a uniter. So his parsha, the parsha of the king is Hashem Echad, and then there's the Rabbim, then there's the Hoi Paloi, the Hamayim, and they have their interests, which are not the same as the one who's Levadad. But here he's making shalom between them. He's saying, me and you are both going to go to sleep. I'm going to go sleep with the first parsha. You're going to sleep with the second parsha. Either we don't have no shaykhs to each other. We do, because my lave, which is really rooted in the Parsha Yishayna, has simcha from when you guys have your rive. Even though I'm not interested in rive, because I want echad. But when they have their Dagan and Tirish, I have simcha too. Okay? That is the Torah. Seems to work out.
Interesting.
You have to go listen to the last year.
Yeah, I have a question. The Rabbim and the Bnei Ish are the same people or not?
The which ones?
Bnei Ish and the Rabbim.
I think the Bnei Ish and the Rabbim. That's an interesting question.
I think it's not, because Bnei Ish is like Avshalom, the people, the Fatah, the Rabbi.